Hey guys, Bottom1925 here watching the launch of Soyuz TMA-16M. I think. Launching from Baikonur, as always.
Hello everyone and welcome to Mission Control Houston and our live coverage of the launch of the one-year mission to the International Space Station. I'm Dan Hewitt. Right now you're getting your first look at a live view of the Soyuz rocket out there at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The
Mikey's still here,
sitting
by the way.
fully fueled and ready to go. Launch scheduled today at 2:42 p.m. Central Time. As you can see, it's nighttime over there. It's going to be 1:42 a.m. Baikonur, Kazakhstan time over on the other side of the world. Tonight's launch taking place from historic site number 1.
That's where Yuri Gagarin launched from.
The pad where Yuri Gagarin became the first human to venture into space almost 54 years ago.
Okay, who's my favorite?
Sabi Aslan tamad nam sa badda sila.
Currently very clear. Temperatures hovering right around mid 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold day over in March for the launch today, but all conditions pointing towards being great for this afternoon's launch of the one-year mission. Sitting on top of that rocket inside the Soyuz TMA-16M spacecraft are NASA astronaut Scott Kelly and Russian cosmonauts Gennady Padalka and Mikhail Kornienko. Definitely one of the most veteran crews to ever be flying towards the International Space Station. All three have previous long-duration experience.
What do you think they're going?
6-month stays.
Gennady Padalka and Mikhail Kornienko. No, shut up.
Are going to be making the first ever year-long visit to the International Space Station. And they're going to be going on a mission to help us better understand how the human body reacts and adapts to the harsh environment of space for longer and longer periods of time as we continue to get ready for our journey to Mars. We'll touch a little bit more on the one-year mission a little bit later today in our broadcast. Kelly, Padalka, and Kornienko are going to be doing a single-day flight to the International Space Station today, with docking scheduled to come just 6 hours after launch. The docking targeted for 8:36 p.m. Central Time tonight, or 7:36 a.m. tomorrow morning in Baikonur, where colleagues, friends, and family of the Soyuz crew are going to be standing by to watch the events unfold. The Soyuz craft is going to be docking with the Poisk module, which is on one of the ports that's on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. You can see the entire diagram here. The crew are going to be joining the current station residents on board. Three-person crew made up of Commander Terry Virts, NASA astronaut, and then flight engineers Anton Shkaplerov, another Russian cosmonaut, and Samantha Cristoforetti, an ESA astronaut from Italy, who have been on board the International Space Station since November 24th. Those three are scheduled to return to Earth, their Soyuz spacecraft coming up on May 13th, U.S. time. Right now here in Houston, the Orbit 2 team sitting on console monitoring the systems, getting ready for this afternoon's launch and getting updates from their Russian counterparts. Right now the flight director on console, Tony Sakachi, and then coming on to replace him shortly will be Brian Smith, who will be overseeing the team for the rest of the evening. And during the Soyuz's climb to orbit, tracking and telemetry from the vehicle is going to be downlinked to various ground stations along the flight path, which is then routed to the Russian Mission Control Center located in Koryov, just outside of Moscow. So right now, though, we are 1 hour and 9 minutes away from today's launch of this Expedition 43 crew with the 2 one-year crew members towards the International Space Station. And again, they're inside the Soyuz TMA-16, their crew patch showing their Soyuz spacecraft approaching the docking with the space station. In the background, you can see an outline of a stopwatch, which, when combined with the 3 running figures, depicts the marathon theme of this crew. As again, Kelly and Kornienko are going to be on board for an entire year. Also very interesting, Gennady Padalka, one of the most veteran space flyers in history, about to become the most veteran. He's going to be breaking the record for most cumulative days in space for a human being. So very exciting time for Padalka. And then we also have the one-year crew mission patch, as Kelly and Kornienko are sporting these on their flight suits. The large number 1 depicting the duration of the flight, with both the U.S. and Russian flags representing the countries of the crew members, and the last names of the crew appearing under the space station symbol above 13 stars, which actually represents the individual number of astronauts and cosmonauts who are going to be on board the space station working together during this year-long mission. The Earth and Sun depicted with 2 orbital planes symbolizing the space station orbiting Earth, while the Earth is orbiting the Sun during this year-long mission. Right now inside the Soyuz, we're getting live views of the crew. You may or may not see an object hanging during ascent, a toy snowman. The crew usually hanging some kind of
That was last launch.
small little plush animal or some
What?
indicator of
No, not yet.
gravity,
Not yet. That's
the
no.
environment that they're in. May or may not see that today, but we'll keep our eyes peeled. And again, everything's still continuing to look on track for an on-time liftoff today at 2:42 p.m. Central Time, 1:42 a.m. Baikonur time. Right now, about an hour and 7 minutes away from launch.
1 hour and 7 minutes until liftoff.
And so, again, during the climb to orbit, all of the tracking and telemetry, all the data coming down from the Soyuz vehicle is going to be downlinked to ground stations along their path and routed to the launch control bunker, which is actually real near the launch pad in Baikonur, and then goes over to the Russian Mission Control Center. You can see here in Koryov the flight controlled from that bunker until shutdown of the 3rd stage on that Soyuz rocket. And then a few seconds after the Soyuz reaches its orbit, the vehicle's command and control systems will come online. They'll be activated. A number of stored computer commands will go into action, deploying antennas and also the solar arrays, which will be used to collect power for the onboard batteries, generating electricity for the Soyuz systems. The first antennas that are going to get deployed are used for the Core's rendezvous and docking system, which will be used to give automatic range and rate of closure information on the final approach for the Soyuz, again docking with that Poisk module later this evening. Then immediately after reaching orbit, the crew will oversee the programmed activation of a variety of different systems as it passes out of range of those Russian ground stations, including the station or the spacecraft's power supply system, its radio communication system, and its motion control system. And during the first orbit of today's flight, the Soyuz will automatically execute the first 2 of several orbital adjustment burns that are planned as the vehicle fine-tunes and raises its orbit on its path to the International Space Station. And so one of those seated inside, Scott Kelly, flying to space today for his 4th time, getting ready to spend a whole year on board the International Space Station. Why don't we take this opportunity for a closer look at his road to becoming an astronaut.
People sometimes look at, how did you go from this kid to an astronaut? That's a pretty big step, but in reality, it's really a bunch of little steps that kind of build upon each other. My brother and I were explorers at a very young age. Spent a lot of time outside, a lot of time at the Jersey Shore. As we got older, when I went to college, I kind of took that to the next level, going to a merchant marine officer's school. We had this 800-foot ship that we would take to Europe every summer. It was a World War II troop and cargo vessel. It did have that kind of romantic aspect to it, and that just reminded me of what it must have been like on a sailing vessel hundreds of years ago. I think operating the vessel, just the kind of the methodology and the attention to detail you needed to do that helped me when I went into the Navy, really helped me do well in flight school, which then helped me get selected to fly jets, which then transitioned to flying fighters, the F-14 Tomcat, later becoming a test pilot and an astronaut. I'm Scott Kelly, and I'm an astronaut.
And that again, a look at the path Scott Kelly has taken towards becoming an astronaut. Kelly flight into space and spending a full year